I never thought that my closest friend Jess would turn out to be the nightmare that haunted my reality. Our friendship had spanned 6 years, and I considered her a sister. We shared secrets, dreams, and endless laughter. But one fateful day, I discovered a side of Jess I could never have imagined. It all began with a forgotten laptop. I had left it at our shared apartment, and I needed it for an urgent project. With a sense of anticipation, I returned to our cozy sanctuary, eager to retrieve my laptop and catch up with Jess. The apartment had always been a place of comfort, but that day, a shiver ran down my spine as I turned the key in the lock. The atmosphere had changed. The curtains were drawn, shrouding the living room in an eerie gloom. A strange scent lingered in the air, a mix of decay and something else I couldn't quite place. As I moved further into the apartment, a sense of unease deepened. I found my laptop on the kitchen table, opened and displaying a folder filled with photos of me. Candid shots taken from a distance, pictures of me asleep, and even more unsettling, close-ups of my face, my expressions, my emotions captured without my knowledge. My heart raced and dread tightened its grip on my chest. Panic set in as I heard the shower running in the bathroom, and I realized Jess was home. I quietly picked up my laptop, desperate to escape and make sense of this disturbing revelation. But as I reached for the door, it creaked open slowly. There stood Jess, but her once familiar face was contorted with a sinister smile. Her eyes, once filled with warmth, now burned with a disturbing obsession. She whispered in a chilling tone, "I knew you'd come back, darling. I've been watching you all this time." Fear coursed through my veins as I stumbled backward. Jess advanced, blocking my only exit. She revealed the extent of her obsession, a wall covered with hundreds of pictures, newspaper clippings, and scribbled notes connecting them all. It was a grotesque shrine dedicated to me. "Your every move, your every thought, all mine," she whispered, her voice trembling with madness. As the realization sank in, I managed to reach for my phone, dialed 911, and left it on speaker mode. The dispatcher heard Jess's terrifying confessions, promising help on the way. It was my only lifeline. Jess lunged at me, and the struggle was frantic, desperate. I managed to break free and dashed for the front door, my heart pounding in my chest. The police arrived just in time, and Jess was apprehended, her chilling obsession exposed for the world to see. In the aftermath, as the police took her away, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. The nightmare that was once my closest friend, the sense of security I had known was forever shattered, replaced by a haunting distrust of those I once held dear. And as I look back on that horrifying day, I leave you with this advice: trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, investigate it. The danger may be closer than you think, lurking behind a facade of friendship. The true horror lies in the monsters hidden within the people you trust the most. Be vigilant, stay safe, and protect yourself from the lurking darkness that may be closer than you ever imagined. I always knew that Jason was troubled, but I had no idea just how deeply his demons would come to haunt me one fateful night. It all began when he showed up on my doorstep, his eyes hollow and his face etched with exhaustion. His roommate had kicked him out after a heated argument, and I couldn't turn him away. Little did I know that this act of kindness would lead to a sleepwalking nightmare that still sends shivers down my spine. The night was dark and stormy, the rain pelting against my window like an ominous warning. I had offered Jason my couch, and he accepted gratefully. I hoped that he could find some solace in my home, but his presence only brought an eerie tension that hung heavily in the air. Hours passed, and I lay in bed, trying to drown out the relentless rain. Suddenly, a creaking sound broke the silence. I bolted upright, my heart pounding as I scanned the room. There was no sign of Jason. I cursed myself for not locking the door behind him. I tiptoed down the hallway, the floorboards groaning beneath my feet. As I reached the living room, a chilling sight met my eyes. Jason was standing in the middle of the room, his back to me, swaying eerily. I called out his name, but he didn't respond. Panic swelled inside me as I approached him cautiously. His breathing was ragged, and he seemed lost in a deep slumber. I gently touched his shoulder, hoping to wake him, but as he turned around, his eyes were empty, devoid of recognition. Jason's face contorted into a grotesque, unnatural smile, and he whispered, "It's time." The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as he slowly raised a knife he had somehow obtained. My heart raced, and I stumbled backward, narrowly avoiding his blade. Desperation drove me to flee the room. Slamming the door behind me, I dialed 911, my trembling fingers struggling to hold the phone. The operator assured me that help was on the way, but minutes felt like hours as I waited in agonizing fear. Then the most horrifying part of the ordeal unfolded. I heard a sinister sing-songy voice coming from the other side of the door. It was Jason, taunting me. "You can't escape, my friend," he whispered. The voice was distorted and unnatural, sending chills down my spine. As the police arrived and burst into my apartment, they found me in a state of panic, my voice trembling as I pointed them toward the living room. To my horror, they found nothing. No sign of Jason, no weapon, just an empty room. They searched the building, but Jason had vanished without a trace. The only evidence of his presence was the unsettling image of him standing in the living room, wielding that chilling smile and a knife. The nightmare ended, but I was left with lingering questions and a profound sense of dread. Had it all been a night terror? Or had Jason been pushed to the brink of madness that night? My advice to you, dear listener, is to be cautious when helping troubled friends. Sometimes the darkness that lurks within them can become your own personal horror story, leaving you questioning the very nature of reality and the limits of human sanity. Be careful and trust your instincts. Sometimes it's better to distance yourself from those who may lead you into a sleepwalking nightmare from which there is no escape. The night was thick with ominous clouds, and the air hung heavy with uncertainty. The streetlights flickered as I walked home, casting eerie shadows on the deserted sidewalk. I just had one of those nights that are supposed to be fun, but end up leaving you with a knot of unease in your stomach. It all began when my secretive friend Milo invited me out for a drink. Milo was always a bit of an enigma, keeping his personal life locked up tight. As we stepped into the dimly lit bar, I couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The night was young, but Milo had already knocked back a few too many. His laughter grew louder and more unsettling with each drink. I watched as his eyes grew vacant, and his words slurred into an incomprehensible mumble. It was time to get him home, I thought. Outside, the rain began to pour, a fitting backdrop for the chaos that awaited. Milo stumbled, nearly falling into the gutter. His phone slipped from his pocket, and I reached down to pick it up. But as I did, a notification caught my eye. The message was from an unsaved number, and the content made my heart race. It was a picture, a sinister, gruesome image that chilled me to the bone. My blood turned to ice as I realized what I was looking at. It was a photograph of a lifeless, mutilated body. The message that accompanied it simply read, "You're next." Panic coursed through my veins, and I turned to find Milo grinning at me with a crazed look in his eyes. He mumbled something about a game and staggered away into the night. I was left standing in the rain, shaking and terrified. With trembling hands, I decided to investigate further. I unlocked Milo's phone, praying that I'd find something to explain the horror I'd just witnessed. What I discovered was a nightmarish trail of messages, photos, and videos, evidence of Milo's involvement in a secret, sinister cult. They were responsible for the horrifying image I had seen, and it appeared they had plans for me. The chilling realization washed over me that my secretive friend was not the person I thought he was. I was now trapped in a terrifying game of life and death, with Milo and his cult as my adversaries. The ominous consequences of my discovery loomed large. In the days that followed, I lived in constant fear, always watching over my shoulder. The cult left cryptic messages and threats, tormenting me with the knowledge that they were getting closer. Every night, I would hear strange sounds outside my window. and every message sent a shiver down my spine. And then, just as I thought I couldn't take it any longer, the twist of terror arrived. I received a final message, this time with a location, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. My heart pounded as I realized I had no choice but to confront Milo and the cult. As I entered the warehouse, I found myself in a room filled with candles and cloaked figures. Milo stood at the center, his once familiar face now contorted with malice. They had lured me here to complete a sinister ritual, and I was the sacrifice. But as they chanted their dark incantations, I noticed something odd, a glimmer of fear in Milo's eyes. The twist came when he whispered to me, "I never wanted this, but they have my family." With a surge of courage, I lunged at the cult's leader, knocking the candles over and plunging the room into darkness. Chaos erupted, and I managed to escape. The cult scattered, and their hold over Milo was broken. As I left the warehouse, I realized the true horror of the situation, the thin line between a secretive friend and a sinister secret. My advice to you, dear listener, is to trust your instincts and never dismiss that feeling of unease. The most terrifying secrets are often hidden behind the facade of those we think we know best.